omni-channel experience to your consumers today. But the very definition of omni-channel has been changing dramatically over the years. If you think 10 years ago, for retailers, the omni-channel experience, the challenge that they faced was, should they have their own brand stores? Should they participate in multi-brand stores? Should they participate in malls or outside on the roads where the consumers are? 3 years ago, if you asked anybody the definition, they were thinking about whether should we go online as well. Offline, we already have a good presence, we're expanding there. We've figured out how to reach the consumers offline. But what about online? The consumers are moving online. People are going and using internet. How do we use that? But today, with mobile and the current generation, even laptops and desktops and internet have sort of become obsolete. They are the mobile first generation. So the definition of omni-channel today is across all devices, across all channels, to a consumer who is walking in the mall with the mobile phone in his hand and looking through various stuff, various apps. How do you reach that consumer? And this is a huge challenge all the organizations today are facing. How do we tackle the various challenges, both internally and externally, reach the audience, reach the consumers across all? What stories should they share? What stories should they build across channel? And that's what we are going to discuss in this panel. Having said that, I would request the panelists to give a brief introduction about themselves and probably what their definition of omni-channel today stands at.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. First of all, thank you for being here. It's a great encouragement for all of us. So I'm Radhika. I head the digital marketing initiative at Policy Bazaar. Policy Bazaar is India's, maybe was only, but we have many other competitors, but web aggregator, insurance web aggregators, which help people compare and buy insurance products. So it's not very sexy, but we try to do our best. So my definition of omni-channel is two things. I went through many sites and everybody had the same definition, so I decided to rewrite a definition saying it's a combination of omniscient, which is knowing anything and everything about the customer, as much as possible about the customer, and make available, making that data or information available at the right time whenever he's interacting with the company in any form or fashion.
So Trend in retails all Madura brands and related brands, associated brands, which is pan-Indian brands. The way we define omni-channel internally is looking at having one single view of the consumer and creating one single view of the inventory, so that we are able to service them across any channel, any medium, and provide them the complete endless aisle.
Hi, I'm Shashank. I head digital and aggregator business for Max Cooper. Max Cooper is essentially into health insurance, which is a difficult sector, largely because no one really wants to talk to an insurance company unless they have to file a claim. For us, omni-channel experience is a one-to-one experience with the customer. Whatever the medium, whether it's a mobile, whether it's a desktop, whether it's offline, I need to have a conversation with the customer, because insurance at the end of the day is all about trust.
Hi, this is Vijay. I head e-commerce for Raymond. Very similar business that Madhura is into, is primarily catering to the main audience in the fashion space. The way we, I think, define internally for omni-channel is obviously having, making our products available to the customer wherever he or she would like to purchase it, and trying to actually ensure that our inventory is exposed in an omniscient way from any channel that he would pick it up from. So I think it's very hard to do for companies like us who fundamentally been in the retail business, but that's the journey that we sort of embarking on.
Today the consumer is omni-channel. The consumer has access to whatever he wants, like be it mobile, laptop, desktop, in his office, at home, or moving around in the offline world. Are you guys ready to be with the consumer across his journey, throughout this journey, both in building your brand when the consumer is probably not actively looking for a product, or during the research phase when the consumer is actively looking for a product or service which you provide? And what are the challenges that you face today to provide such an omni-channel experience?
Yes, well, I can take it. So basically, I think the answer is no. I think we still have a long way to go in terms of the approach. And I think fundamentally for companies like us which have been in the physical space, the easier option was to just invest in a brand and open a store essentially. That were the only two things which were largely relevant. Right? And when the large format retail store opened up, making sure that you were present in the shoppers or lifestyle or the central. I think what's happening is that today the consumer is influenced by many things. So when he's influenced on the digital world, there's a content element to it, there is a technology element to it. So I think those aspects are essentially where there's a huge gap in what we would have today as our capabilities and where we want to go to. So I think that is the area that we are largely focusing on, and I think if we are able to crack that piece, we have the advantage of the brand and we have advantage of the physical retail network. So we're able to get to that journey much faster, and I think we should be able to deliver far more value to the consumer.
If you are buying a mobile, what comes to your mind? Top of your mind. Which is the retailer or which is the destination comes to your mind? Anybody can take this question. Pardon? And if you are buying, say, pardon? No. Irrespective. Right? Anybody else?
Somebody said.
Okay, Flipkart and Amazon. Right? Now, this is the biggest mindset challenge for us from a retailer perspective, who has always been on. Because they are so entrenched with the brand rather than a platform. Right? So, when we are looking at embarking on an omni-channel journey, the challenge is now the consumer acquisition has gone online. Right? Because in this audience of select retailers, the top of the mind recall is 2 online platforms. Right? Now that is the biggest mindset challenge which when probably me or Vijay who are trying to embark on it, building the whole omni-channel experience, that online acquisition of consumers or predominantly being relevant in the online shopping space is the biggest critical success factor for you to build omni-channel. Because if you do not have a robust e-commerce outlook, you don't have an omni-channel, you don't need an omni-channel, right? That's the biggest mindset. Because 99.9% of the organization that we work is on the retail side, on the offline side. I'm using retail more from an offline perspective, so, right? This is one single big challenge. Second is when you're looking at an online acquisition, technology plays a larger role. Most of these organizations have legacy technology at the back end. They have always seen technology as a support, not as a driver. A retail store does not stop billing if their legacy software is crashed. So the technology mindset is we'll fix it later. While when you're embarking on an omni-channel kind of journey, it's real time. Right? The third aspect of the whole thing is intelligence, which is I know my consumers more in an online perspective. So an Amazon would know my email ID, my address. Every transaction at Trendin, we know the guy's address to the last month, right? Now on the offline, on the regular retailer side, it's not there. Omnichannel is about marrying that. Omnichannel is also about pushing a lot of things online, getting that intelligence, marrying it when they are offline. So you start recognizing it. So when you look at these 3 legs, marrying these 3 legs and delivering it is the biggest challenge which any retailer who embarks on an omnichannel journey will face. And that's why we are all, in India, I think we have just taken not even one step, half a step over the last 1.5 years. My journey, Madhura's journey has been 3 years in the online space, while e-commerce we are at a stage wherein we feel that from a comparatively within our own brand space, competitive set space, we are slightly ahead of the curve probably from a pure online e-commerce perspective, but Omni-Channel, I think we are just starting. Globally also, this journey is not yet completed.
But there's another aspect to Omni-Channel journey, which is a lot of which is not in the marketer's control, specifically social. So a lot of people are going to be talking about your brand on Twitter, on Facebook, and you cannot control that conversation. You can only participate in that. And that's also part of the brand experience, because that brand experience the consumer is taking on his own.
So, just my take on it. So when I was just doing a research on this subject. So it was almost as if Omni-Channel is directed towards all of these brick and mortar retailers. So I was thinking, what am I doing in this panel in this first place? So, but then I realized that challenge that we are facing, but I do not think it's a mindset. I'm assuming you're talking about organization mindset. Okay, fine. So, but just a couple of questions. So, when we are trying to build an online company, there are two aspects to the company that we're trying to build. One is a brand. So, obviously, there's a lot of money and effort done towards building a Flipkart today. Amazon, of course, is a different story. But whether it's Flipkart or even it's Policy Bazaar, there's a lot of money and effort and measurement also which we've done towards building our brand. The other aspect is building the online experience for the customer. So you are enrolled with the brand, we are enrolled with the customer experience, which is thankfully internet is not only available to us, it's available to everybody. But I think there is an opportunity for brands like yours, especially Raymond and Louis Philippe. I hope I got the brands right. But for each of them to use channels effectively, primarily one mindset could be in terms of what's the sale, but then having mapped out saying that the first few years would be brand building and engagement with the customer, leading to virtual stores, and then moving towards what's the ROI on these brands. I think that's something for us as marketers to really prove that. I would not say that it's a big mindset that we need to fight.
Could be, that's out of our experience.
So this question, Radhika, is for you. A lot of research from the consumer standpoint has moved online, which has helped organizations like you grow into an online-only business fairly quickly in the last few years. But there are still a few aspects within the decision-making or the buying process which are offline. Do you think there is a mindset issue within your organization to not go offline and be with the consumer alongside? Is there a valid question here?
So we do have an offline presence. The way we look at offline is we have, once a customer comes and makes an inquiry, we can recognize the customer and we can follow the customer wherever he's gone after that, excepting of course to our partner sites. Our primary belief is that 3 years back, there's Carrot Lane which was selling diamonds online, and me as a person, a consumer of diamonds, never would have thought that I can eventually buy diamonds online. So when you think about it, it's about how Carrot Lane has been able to make it modularized for the customer, look at what diamonds are, educate the customer of how to evaluate a diamond, give the certificate saying that this is a pure diamond, and then help customers buy. So there is, if you can buy diamonds online, I'm sure you can buy insurance products online. And we have an offline presence in terms of once the customer makes an inquiry, there is an advisor who calls the customer to tell him about each of the insurance products. And then we are in a process now saying that, okay, which are the insurance product we can wean off the customer call. So there are some things which come to our mind, which is car insurance and travel insurance, which customers do not want us to call. We check that in testing, saying how many of you want a call, many of us them don't want a call, and our conversion rates remain unchanged. So I think over a period of time, if we have the right anchors, right education, and that's for us, challenge for us in terms of right content and inbound marketing, we have that in place, we are confident that we can do what it is to do completely online. We can look at offline stores, but given the life stage of the company, I think it would be a huge distraction for us at this point of time. Having said which, we could definitely do it at some point.
So Radhika, how do you deal with customers who say, I'm only comfortable doing an offline payment, or I want someone to come home and explain to me the policy? Because that happens with us. Even if you're selling online, a lot of times the customer will say, I want someone.
As of now, we are only dealing with him to say, oh, we would send him educational CDs, emailers to sort of keep that engagement going with the customer and follow up after a certain point of time. So we are resorting to online channels. So I know we might be missing out on the sale on those kind of customers, but I think in terms of the battles to be won, that's a far lesser battle compared to the other battles that we are fighting.
Shashank, what's your view on this? You are, so Max Puba is there, has a fairly large offline presence, and you guys are moving online because of the demand there. So what do you think? What portion of the buying cycle a consumer would be online, and what portion is offline, and how do you support the consumer throughout?
So clearly with insurance, especially health insurance, a lot of people have questions and which they probably can't answer online. So you need a mix of online and tele-assist to start with. A lot of times people will start their journey from a smartphone. 40% of our searches come from a smartphone, but they will not be able to buy on a phone. So for us, the strategy over the next 2 years is to figure out if we can capture the basic information about the person, and once he moves to a desktop or he moves to an agent, we are able to fulfill the entire journey without him having to give that information again. Is going to be a a great thing for him, because that's part of giving an omni-channel experience where he feels that the company knows what I am and what I am doing. So that's what we are looking at.
Moving forward, so today we are all talking about the discussion that we have had in the last 10 minutes. We are all talking about how, as an organization, we would provide an experience to the consumers. How about the consumer's view of your organization? How do you think that matters across channels? Is it the same brand presence of Louis Philippe in a brand store versus on a Flipkart or louisphilippe.com? Does it have to be the same across all the panels? How do you feel you are tackling with the consumer view? What do you showcase to the consumer on what channel?
So this would be more slightly, it's a mix of organizational view and personal view, what I would like to put in now from a consumer's point. The way we look at it is we are moving to a connected world where the consumer will stop differentiating. Consumer will only recognize a brand, right? And he will say, wherever I buy, the whole brand experience should follow. For example, if it is a loyalty card, a loyalty point, he is buying my brand, whether he is buying in Flipkart or Lifestyle or Shopper Stop or my own store, either it is Trendin or my brand store. I would like to believe the consumer's expectation is moving towards that my loyalty card should be used, loyalty point should be used across. Now this is where we are moving. We are moving to a economy where consumers will stop differentiating a platform. He may say, this is the brand which I want. Everywhere the experience should be same. In the true sense, Omni-Channel would move there, should move there, right? Now, that would mean that we may have to overcome certain barriers which traditionally we used to follow. That he's a Louis Philippe customer. For example, from Madhura's point of view, we have 5 brands. Once standalone integration happens, then probably we'll have 23 brands, right? So far, the experience, the overall journey has been that, he's a Van Heusen customer, he's a Louis Philippe customer, he's a Pittman customer. Forget the overlap. When we launched, in 6 months, we demonstrated to the organization that each brand has an overlap of 20%. And what was surprising, a guy who was buying Louis Philippe, which is at the premium end of my brands, right, was also buying People, which is fast fashion catering to 16 to 23-year-old age bracket, right? Now this is an idea. At the same time, we did another step, because online is always threatening the offline, right? Cannibalization, XYZ, blah, 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 right? This is every meeting I have to face this, right? We saw, you would be shocked. There was 7% overlap between Van Heusen loyalty consumers and Trendin shoppers over a period of last 2.5 years. That means there are 2 things. One, either offline retailers are very bad in capturing the consumers, which could be true, right? Or this set of consumers are completely new. Probably because Trendin is there, because brands are online, there is a set of young consumers who are coming and buying, who would traditionally not walk into these brand stores. Right? The third aspect of Omni-Channel would be that from a consumer point of view, across, he should be able to be recognized. Right? Now that is a big challenge in the offline. In the online space, I could recognize if he is already a customer, otherwise I cannot recognize. Now this is a puzzle which we have to solve. And going forward with mobile, that seems to be a solvable problem because mobile enables you to recognize the consumer. If he has downloaded the app, your position of recognizing him is much higher in the mobile space. Then that drives your proximity marketing, right? So if you look at the whole 360 degree of this, achieving this whole 360 journey, this whole 360 experience, I think we are a long way, but we know the elements of it. Now we have to tie it up. I mean, whoever retailer ties it up smartly and quickly can create a differentiator for himself. Yeah, I mean,
I'm just thinking about it, like when Shoppers Stop opened, right? The fundamental thing was that people were not used to knowing the large format stores, right? People were used to going to, let's say, EBOs or whatever. When LFS started becoming more and more popular, I think a lot of brands worked with these LFS to make sure that their brand was, positioned well, it got the representation. Because at the end of the day, when a customer walks into Shoppers Stop, he's equally susceptible to buying any other brand today, right? So I think, to your question, what is it from the consumer side? So I think those challenges have existed even in the physical world, whether it be a shopping mall or a large format store. A consumer has the choice to go to anywhere, and the idea is to, once he's walked into a LFS store, what is it that you can influence him to change his decision is what people have actually worked with the likes of Shoppers or a Central and delivered that. So I think the challenge for us also is to really understand what kind of a consumer is coming into Flipkart. What is the kind of consumer going to say trend in, or what is the kind of consumer going to Myntra? Why is a guy going to Shop Clues and decides to buy clothes and not to, let's say, maybe a Paytm? So these are very different sort of slices of what the online world offers. And I think from a consumer perspective, it's very important for us to make sure that wherever he's touching the brand, he at least gets a similar, interaction, so to speak. Right? Like for example, you have also these mega marts and value retail stores also. So there is a Park Avenue customer there. There's a Park Avenue customer in my Park Avenue factory outlet, and there's a Park Avenue customer in Shoppers Stop, and there's also a Park Avenue customer in my EBO. So there is various consumption of the same brand across channels, and I think the biggest challenge for Omni-Channel is now the digital part plays a very big role in able to identify the customer or to ensure that the product pricing is consistent. So I think in those ways, one has to align themselves to ensuring that the customer sees you in a very similar way. And I think that's from a consumer facing standpoint, I think that's the challenge that retailers like us have.
I wanted to add one more point. I think we are also moving towards wherein clearly from a pure end purchase point of view, consumers will be categorized into two buckets, either offline or online. Only pre-journey can be offline and online. So if the same question of a different question is thrown up, you have shopped on Flipkart. Would you ever like to go somewhere else? Right? For a particular category, you may never go because you are so used to it. So a consumer who has now evolved, even if it's a fashion, well, fashion seems to be the highest resistance category to go purely online. Books has gone almost 80-90% of the business has gone online. Probably somebody was sharing with me that roughly 25% of the mobiles sold in this country is through Flipkart. That means Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal, Shopclose put together probably would be 40-50%. Right? Now that kind of shift may not happen in fashion, but the guy who gets habituated to the online, he remains online. But he may still do a window shopping, or he may still do an impulse entry into a store because the window was so beautiful that he would like to experience that product. But still, even in the store, he may prefer to buy online if it is omni-channel. We just say ship it there, I don't want to waste my time here. You never know, right?
Actually, isn't it the other way? A lot of time, consumer is willing to research online because he feels that he gets a better perspective, whether it's insurance, automobile, I don't know so much about fashion, and then go and buy it offline.
Absolutely. So that's why I mentioned it's a category is a rider, right? Automobile probably will never. I should not be saying you will never because never is really, right? You may still start shopping automobile because if Alibaba last year sold 30,000 cars on Singles Day, that means it is shoppable online, right? So it's just that
People are selling houses now.
yeah. So category-wise category, each category has its own behavior, right? The second aspect is I think we are moving. Omni-channel should enable on-demand service. At least from us retailers, probably the consumers expected it should be there. Is there? Probably we are not realizing it, right? If we are on-demand service for a taxi, why not on-demand service where from my nearest store, wherever you are, it gets delivered, right? Have we solved that puzzle? I don't think so. Are we thinking? Yes, but how to solve? We don't have an answer, right? I think that's an evolution. So one thing which we are looking at is, can we ride on Tiny Owl or Swiggy in Bangalore? Then they pick up wherever they are going, pick up a shirt. But will that experience be enough for a consumer to buy apparel? We don't know. These are some of the questions, for which we ourselves are searching for answers. But I think consumer expectation is predominantly moving towards there. He's becoming more and more impatient.
So I was just thinking of one broad category is offline and online. And within online, the challenges that we face is over the last 2-3 years, we've increased the number of channels that we have for the customer. So maybe 3 years back, we had only a website. Now then we have a mobile optimized site. So we had a mobile site which needed to be mobile optimized, and then now we have an app. So the challenge for us now is we have a plethora of options for the customer. Now is the time for us to, the challenge which we will face is to say that which customer would we move towards which channel. So earlier we would have heard, I was in Citibank long back, and one of the things which you should say is channel migration. Saying the objective of channel migration was moving the customer to the lowest cost channel. But for us, I don't think we have the flexibility for any organization to do that now. But now would be which is the customer's channel preference and how would say my brand interact with that customer in that channel. So here the channel would be an app or a mobile site or a emailer, any of that. Just give you an example. So in our app, it's a big challenge of how to keep the engagement going for the customer. So we're saying if the customer's already bought a policy, next time if it's a health insurance policy, next time he gets onto the app and he's on the road, we say that okay, these are your network hospitals, you want to look for network hospitals. Or if it's a car insurance, these are your garage locators, these are your garages which are close by. So it cannot be the same kind of content that I have when a customer visits a website, but it's something which is very specific to the channel that I'm dealing with the customer. So I think that's going to be our challenge for the next 1 year at least.
So, Omni-channel, one of the trends that we've discussed is fairly obvious that consumers research online and today probably buy offline. But there's a reverse trend which is emerging there where a lot of consumers in certain categories are researching offline. I would go to a mall, go and shop, go into various stores, try out the products because I don't know if I buy it online, what is the product that's going to come eventually. But I would rather buy it online because of various things, better offers, which is very obvious. They get delivered to my home, I don't have to carry them along wherever I am going, and other reasons. So according to you, like offline companies versus online companies, both have their own strengths, both have grown on those strengths based on the consumer change. Which type of organization is better equipped to provide an omni-channel experience in the near future? It's for all of you.
I think companies that have started out, in the new age may find it much more easier. Like a Chroma, for example, is a good example because they started out in the later part of the retail revolution. So today, for example, what you see on Chroma online is actually an aggregated inventory of all their stores. So it's easy for them to, do that. But regardless of which, I think, I don't know whether it's easier or difficult, honestly. But just understanding this whole animal called Omni-Channel itself is very, very difficult as such. And I think the instant gratification part, which is available in the offline world today, is something that today I think this whole hyper-local is helping you bridge that gap. But the larger draw towards online has always been discounts, and always been, I think, given a choice between convenience and discount, I think it's probably discounts drives more people to shop online. And I think that's the current environment is so catered towards consumer acquisition that there is tremendous amount of discounts generally happening, Like shoppers and all these guys always had EOSs, right? But it was never, built to be such a big thing, right? But today, the EOSs is just a small blip, and you have your Sundays. And these days it's called end of reason sale. There's no reason, but it's a sale. So some of those, I think, challenges are important for us to understand. Wherein, if that continues, then obviously the consumer preference will be more pivoted towards the online presence, because then he's always guaranteed a higher offer. We believe that at some point in time this will sort of stabilize, and you will probably see pricing parity as much as possible that you see in the physical world today, you might see it in the online world.
But do you think a Flipkart is better equipped to reach the consumer offline as well versus a Chroma in the online space?
I don't think so.
I think so. I think for certain categories like electronics, top of the mind is Flipkart. And if Flipkart opens a store, I think they'll do better than a Chroma, because the consumer mindset is I'm going to get the best deals on Flipkart. I get the best phones. The phones are exclusively available on Flipkart. So if Flipkart goes the offline way, they will have a definite advantage over the Chroma.
So Flipkart doesn't need to go. They are better equipped to provide an on-demand service. They will continue to shrink the delivery time to the consumers. That's the aim which every online retailer has been pushing across the world. Whoever wins the mind share of online consumers is going to win the game.
Is there a distinction between online and offline consumers? Because
that's what I'm coming to, right? Now, category by category, when a consumer moves to the online, he tends to reduce his offline footprint. If you look at over the last 2 years, retailers have seen the biggest dip in their footfalls. Now that's the lead indicator. Now, there is a consumer segment which is, say, 40-45 plus. They are slightly big spenders. They would still continue to come offline, but it is their children who are pushing them that go online, you get better deal. Go online, it is much convenient. Don't buy for me from offline. Get me there, right? Now look at 10 years down the line, when the current 25 to 30 or 22 to 30 age group, which is predominantly doing most of its activity online. I mean, we have a classic example, right? Travel. Who goes to a travel agent? If you look at Urban Travels was at least in South, was best equipped to create a great experience offline and online, but they do it. That's because you need to acquire consumers online. Your omni-channel strategy has to be driven by that. If you do not do that, then I think the online guys are better equipped to provide an offline service. That's what has happened in US. Amazon is best equipped there. Right? Walmart could do it. I mean, it's a large number which Walmart also has from e-commerce perspective, from an online perspective. But omni-channel experience is not there, because you are not acquiring them. Because you are in your past wherein you say that I have a lot of consumers, but the new age consumers is shifting. So My single point of answer, single way of addressing this would be whoever chases consumers online. It doesn't mean that you acquire only through discounts. It could be, as Vijay was telling, relevant content. As Radhika was mentioning, that if probably through the app she starts giving all her consumers that at the tap, at the click, you will get the nearest service center which is authorized by your agency. That's a beautiful content to have. There are a lot of levers, but yes, predominantly your first acquisition of consumer in online happens to be discount rate. I mean, we have to live with it because the lifetime value of the consumer in online is much higher than offline, because you can trace him, you can reach out to him, you can start recognizing him when he walks into your store. Right? One of the experiments which we are doing through our app is with a startup which recognizes. We launched our trend-in app sometime around 2.5 months, mid-June. And we started experimenting with the startup wherein we started asking him, he recognizes where my consumer, my app installer is moving around. So in first 30 days, we had somewhere around 18,000 downloads. We didn't spend anything on the marketing. Obviously, we cannot be compared in terms of spends with the big online guys, right? We saw out of this 15,000 consumers who had downloaded our app, 3 weekends, roughly 1,500 of them, each weekend, each Saturday, Sunday. I mean, Saturday is one day, Sunday is a day. 1,500 of them were there very close to my store. In Oberoi Mall, in Orion Mall in Bangalore, in Phoenix Mall in Whitefield. Now, if this universe goes much higher, if we were able to acquire consumers, say 10,000 downloads every day, we were able to push that app, look at the power it gives. From an omni-channel perspective, I'm not talking about online e-commerce, right? Suddenly our ability to recognize a consumer, that store guy starts getting. It throws up different challenges. When we experimented, suddenly that store guy started getting 15 SMS alerts that easier. He could not recognize anybody. Right? He could not recognize which consumer should he greet. But that, apart from those challenges, but this is the power. Your omni-channel, your retailers, your retail assets can be much leveraged if you really aggressively look at acquiring consumers online for your online work. That's the win. Whoever chases that way, he will create that difference.
Shashank?
You asking me a question or
You're saying Radhika.
One point just to sort of get another flavor to the discussion is in terms of, we talked about different challenges. The other challenge which we face is the capability of the people that execute some of the customer experience that we have. So each of us can come up with brilliant campaigns, marketing campaigns. I'm a marketer, I can come up with brilliant campaigns. But when any one person from my organization is interacting with the customer. So let me give you an example. So before every birthday of yours, or at your birthday, your term insurance premium might change. So I design a beautiful birthday email campaign, say 90 days before, 60 days before, this will be my communication. 1 week before, this will be my communication, say X rupees every year, and in so many years you'll say X lakh rupees. That's my communication. He gets onto it's an emailer sent to him. He gets onto the website, puts in a lead. It gets called by a telecalling agent who has no clue that it's his birthday. He treats him like any other customer. So that's a big capability challenge that I need to overcome. To sort of tell him that, look for this campaign code. If you see this campaign code, please tell him that, oh, your birthday is around the corner. How can I help you? I think that's when my real campaign conversion rate and the experience that the customer has really will come to the fore. But currently, the capability is one aspect that we need to ensure that it's tuned towards what all of us are thinking and how it can be executed in the last mile. Something similar to how a store guy will greet the customer who has already downloaded your app. So I think that's something which one should.
I think CRM is very, very critical. Customer relationship management, knowing your customer and seeing what he is doing is very, very critical. But having said that, I think we're all still struggling when we talk about omni-channel strategy. Mobile is what, 2-3 year phenomena. So everybody has different strategies. Pinterest says we'll go only all app. While a Jabong says that's not, and they're both in the same category. And Jabong says no, we feel the desktop is important because we don't expect consumers to only buy through a mobile app. So I think everybody's still trying to figure out what works best for their industry and what works best for them. It's probably going to take us some time to, have a clear picture.
I think you brought one very good point, and I think we all will agree that as the omni-channel, there are multiple channels where the consumer is. To bridge the gap, we will need a lot more information about the consumer. We will need a lot more data about the consumers across channels, not just mobile, desktop, offline. And there are very interesting solutions that are coming out, and they're just still evolving on how to bridge those gaps. So, what are you guys specially working on in the next 1 year to, one, get that data about the consumer, and then probably provide a much more personalized experience with that data? Radhika, do you want to start?
I cover 2 points just to recapitulate. One would be to ensure that all the data is captured and made available to the person who's doing the sale. I think that single point view. Second is looking at each channel and looking at which customer has which channel preference, and enabling that channel to be the primary channel with which he communicates with the brand. And third is of course the capability development. So any marketing campaign, if there is a person-to-person relationship that is getting done, how can any of the data come to the fore? For example, the birthday example which I had. I think these are the 3 points that we need to stitch up to ensure that the experience is seamless.
For us, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are working towards one single view of the consumer, so that a store, online guys can recognize him much easier, while the store guy can start recognizing from first name perspective itself. We're working towards that. Based on his digital purchase or based on his loyalty, his membership of the loyalty program. And going forward, I think everybody, even the offline stores will get out of all these physical POS keys, everything. So they start recognizing, they start mailing or SMSing or WhatsApping the invoice itself. That's the best way to recognize, right? That's the evolution which will happen. So we are working towards getting a single source of truth as far as consumer retail is concerned. Like Madhura, that's what we want.
Yeah, I agree with Charan. That's what we are also doing. We're trying to get a single view of the customer, whether it's an agent or a contact center or it's online. Everybody knows the same information about the customer.
Very similar things. CRM is something that we are heavily investing in because we have multiple brands, and each brand tended to have their own loyalty program, and each brand believed that there was a value in keeping that consumer to yourself. But I think today the consumer overlaps across brands, and if you can use it, why not? So I think that's one area that we are pushing a lot of effort in. I think technology is another area that we are really pushing in, because a lot of legacy technology, whether it is the back end, the point of sale, I think all these need to evolve to be able to have a unified experience. So I think broadly these are the 2 areas. And of course third is primarily content. Because content is again very, very crucial from the influencing aspect online. So that's another area that we're sort of focusing on.